If you clicked this video, it's because you've had a dream. Far too strange to be just imagination. And today, I'm going to tell you the story of a woman who dreamed of her own end. But what seemed like a warning was only the beginning of something far worse. True story 1. She always came back at 3:03. Her name was Helena, 35 years old, single, teacher, lived alone. She was always skeptical, the type who laughed at horoscopes, spirits, and the supernatural, until she started dreaming of the same room, an iron bed, cracked walls, a flickering light bulb, and a shadow standing in the corner. At first, she'd wake up scared but brush it off. Just stress. But the room came back every night and the shadow got closer each time. At first, it just watched. Then, it started moving. Helena would stop breathing mid-dream and wake up with her heart racing, always at 3 a.m. On the 7th night, Helena tried not to sleep, drank coffee, stayed standing, turned on the TV. But at 3 a.m., she woke up in the room, not in her home, in the dream. And this time, the shadow was beside the bed, breathing. She woke up screaming, and with scratch marks on her arm. She sought help. First a doctor, then a psychiatrist. They said it was parasomnia or stress, but no one explained how the scratches appeared or why the dream room began to appear while she was awake. She saw the light flicker in her bathroom, heard the shadow's footsteps in the kitchen, even while awake. On the 12th day, she locked everything and slept at her sister's house. But the room was still there. Even with her sister beside her, Helena vanished in the middle of the night. The room was empty when her sister woke up. The only thing out of place was a handprint on the wall, black, and far too large to be human. The police were called. Helena was listed as missing, but 3 days later, she reappeared. Alone, walking along a road, barefoot, feet cut and bleeding, and she didn't speak a single word. At the hospital, tests showed she hadn't slept in days. But something was wrong with her eyes. It was like she wasn't there anymore. Her sister swore that was no longer Helena. She smiled strangely, looked over her shoulder, and sometimes whispered in another language. One night she was caught drawing the dream room with blood on her bedroom ceiling, and in the center, a symbol of a black eye. The same shadow now appeared on the house's security cameras. A priest was called. But when he got near her, he fainted. He later said he felt something pull his soul out of his body. Helena laughed. Laughed like it wasn't her anymore. Doctors said it was psychosis. But no one could explain how her name appeared. Burned into the hospital wall hours before she arrived. The next night she slept and never woke up. But the heart monitor never stopped. Her body breathed. Brain still worked, but she was no longer present. And for the first time, doctors wrote in the report, "Patient in waking state, with absent mind." Then her sister found something hidden in Helena's diary. Torn pages, but one phrase repeated, "Waking up is the worst part." And below it, a number, coordinates. They led to an abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town. When she got there, she froze. The place was identical to the dream room. In the center of the room, an iron bed, cracked walls, and on the ceiling and the mark of the black eye. But the worst part was the photo, on the wall, nailed with rusted iron. It was Helena, but behind her, another Helena, paler, darker, like a corrupted reflection. Police shut the place down, but the room vanished days later, literally disappeared, and Helena's body was never found again. She was alive, in records, but no one knew where. As if she had awakened in another realm, in a place where dreams don't end when you open your eyes. Some say dreams are echoes of the unconscious. Others believe they're windows to something greater. But no one talks about what happens when the window opens from both sides, and what's on the other side decides to come in. Helena wasn't the first. And maybe you've been in that room too. You know that place you've never seen in real life, but swear you've been before. And that shadow that only watches? Maybe it's waiting for the moment when you wake up there again. True story 2. The boy who dreamed in code and was called to dig his own grave. If you've ever had a dream so strange it felt like a warning, this story will keep you awake. Edward was 17 when he began hearing voices in his sleep. They whispered in languages he didn't know. But slowly they started showing up in real life. And each new word pulled him closer to something no one should ever find. In the first dream, he stood in a dark, damp tunnel. The light flickered, and the voices came from deep within. They whispered, Ave Luctum, Porta Reserata. Edward woke up shaken. He thought it was just meaningless Latin. But the next day, those same words were scrawled on a wall near his school, written in burned charcoal. He ignored it, until he dreamed again the next night. This time the voices whispered his name and said, Come down, the soil is ready. Edward woke up feeling filthy. There was dirt under his nails, and his feet were covered in mud. But he hadn't left his room. On the third dream, he saw an open field. In the center, a grave, and a cross with his name, birth date, and tomorrow's date. He woke up breathless, but this time, there were muddy footprints on his bedroom floor, leading to the window, and stopping there. Edward began writing everything in a notebook, but the words changed on their own. He'd write one thing, and the next day, it was in another language, symbols that looked ancient. When he researched, he discovered they were invocation ritual marks used by a cult that vanished in the 19th century. One morning, he woke up with a dry mouth and a sore throat. In the mirror, the word opening was written in fog, but no one else was home, and the mirror was in the downstairs bathroom. He felt like he was sleeping in two places at the same time. The following week, the voices changed. They no longer whispered. Now they screamed. They called his name, not with anger, but with an ancient hunger, and always at 3:03 a.m., the exact time he was born. Edward tried sleeping with the light on, but at 3:03, the bulb always flickered, 3 times, then burned out. Every night, he replaced 5 bulbs in 5 days, and one of them showed up in his next dream, buried in his chest. The school noticed, dark circles, distracted, terror in his eyes. They called his mother, but she said, He's just growing. Teen stuff. Edward wanted to talk, but something inside held him back, as if speaking would open a door. On the 10th day, he dreamed of his own funeral, but all the faces were covered, even his. And as the coffin closed, he heard the voices say, Now you are ready. When he woke up, his notebook was on fire, but the pages wouldn't burn. The smell of soil began filling his room, even with the window shut. His mother said it was in his head. But one morning, she found muddy footprints on the sheets, too small to be his, and there was no sign of forced entry, no sign of anyone at all. In the 12th dream, he saw a red door. In the center, the symbol he now drew without noticing, a circle split in 3. The door opened slowly, and behind it, no light, only a breath, heavy, as if someone had been waiting for him for centuries. During the day, he began having lapses. He'd enter rooms and forget why. He heard his name coming from the attic, and once, he saw his shadow move even when he stood still. It turned before he did, and it smiled. An old man from the street said something strange. You're the first in 100 years, the next to dig. Edward had never spoken to him, and when he returned to ask, the man no longer lived there. The house had been empty for months. Neighbors said he died in 1987. The next dream was the worst. He saw his mother sleeping, and a faceless figure over her, whispering in her ear. He's almost ready. He just needs to accept. Edward woke with a nosebleed, and his mother, with bruises on her wrists. He tried to destroy the notebook, threw it in the fireplace, but the pages only darkened, and a phrase appeared in the ashes. Destroying the door is crossing it. That night, the bedroom floor seemed to breathe, as if something alive was beneath it. Food started spoiling quickly. Mirrors fogged up on their own. Clock stopped at 3:03, and when Edward tried sleeping elsewhere, the dreams came even stronger, with louder voices, and now they called him by another name, Son of the Soil. He searched the symbol in obscure forums. One user replied, "If you're seeing this, it's already too late. The only thing left is to accept." The account was deleted minutes later, but left an image, a ritual, with a child being buried alive in a circle of black soil. The next night, he didn't sleep, but at 3:03, he blacked out suddenly. Without realizing, he woke in the tunnel from the first dream. But this time, he held a shovel, and in the distance, the voices no longer called. They commanded. He dug for hours. The soil gave way easily, as if it had been waiting for him, until he hit something solid. It was another notebook, but it wasn't his. Inside, pages dated 1823, and signed by another boy, Edward, 17 years old. The pages were covered with the same symbols he had been drawing, and phrases he hadn't even dreamed yet. But the last one read, "The soil opens only for those who already belong to it." When he touched that sentence, the ground trembled, and something answered from beneath. He woke up at home, but there was soil in his pockets, and the old notebook lay beside his bed. But now he couldn't write in his own. Pens would burst, or the ink would turn to dust, as if everything wanted to silence him. Mirrors began to show different reflections. A room he didn't know, but where someone who looked just like him cried, banging on the wall, begging to be let out. But Edward was awake and couldn't look away. He started avoiding sleep, drank coffee, meds, anything. But his body gave in, and the dreams came even with his eyes open. School became static. People, shadows. Only the voice remained clear. "Come down. It's already inside you." The doctor diagnosed a psychotic break, but when he tried to admit him, the room went dark. The doctor collapsed unconscious, and Edward's file vanished from the system. The hospital said he was never there, but he remembered. He saw the red door in the psychiatric wing hallway. One night his mother vanished. No sign of entry, no screams, but the bed was torn. And on the pillow, the symbol in blood, and his name written backward, Drawday. Now the dreams showed Edward burying someone, but he couldn't see the face until the last night, when the person turned and whispered, "You dug for me. Now dig for yourself." It was him, pale, with completely black eyes. He woke up in the woods, hands dirty and an open grave in front of him. He didn't remember arriving, but beside him was the mirror, the same one from the first dream. And when he looked, he no longer saw his reflection. He saw the shadow, smiling. The next day he went back home, but nothing looked the same. Not the furniture, not the photos, everything was older, as if a century had passed. And the painting on the wall showed a face identical to his, with the date, 1823. That night Edward slept without resisting, because he understood he wasn't dreaming of the past. He was the past. And now, he was also the warning. The next victim was already dreaming, and hearing in the distance the same call. "Come down, the soil is ready." Edward began having memories that weren't his. Flashes of past lives, burials in forests, midnight rituals, people with hollow eyes, digging with their bare hands. Always the same symbol, and always him. Different faces, same soul. He wasn't just a victim. He was the link, the anchor that kept the cycle alive. Since the 18th century, someone was born with the same name, same age, and always dreamed of the same calling. The difference? This time he started to remember. The voices weren't spirits. They were fragments of himself, of all the versions that once existed, and had been buried alive. Each whisper was a memory, each symbol a map back to the source. But the source was older than any language. The old notebook now changed on its own. It wrote words in real time, as if someone or something was dictating from the other side. You are not the chosen one. You are the portal. Each previous Edward was just a step. Now he was the last, the one who would open the true door. His childhood home began to change. Doors appeared where none existed. The staircase twisted endlessly. The attic now smelled like a graveyard. And at night, he heard nails being hammered into walls, as if something was being built or sealed. When he tried to escape, the world unraveled. The street melted into liquid shadow. Trees withered in seconds, and people turned into salt statues. The only real place was the tunnel. Always it, always waiting. He entered for the last time, but now it was full of voices. They screamed the names of the others. Edward from 1780, Edward from 1906, Edward from 1995, and all of them died on the same date, his. At the tunnel's end, a stone door, pulsing. There was no lock because it only opened from the inside. And Edward knew. He was the key, his body, his mind, his surrender. When he touched the door, he heard the screams of those who tried to resist, but he didn't scream. He understood. The truth was never out there. It was inside him. All along. Since the very first dream. He crossed through and the world didn't end. But it was erased, rewritten. In town, a new boy was born. Same face, same eyes, different name. But in his first sleep, he whispered, Ave Luctum. Some dreams are just echoes of the mind, but others are invitations. Silent calls that echo across centuries, and those who answer never return the same, if they return at all. Edward didn't disappear. He was replaced or absorbed. Maybe he exists somewhere between the real and the dreamed. Maybe he's now part of what whispers when we close our eyes, and the voice you hear in your dreams might be him. Because no one escapes the calling. It's not meant to be understood. It's meant to be accepted. When the soil calls, you dig. When the voice answers, you obey. And when the door opens, you cross. Next time you dream of strange symbol, or wake with marks you don't remember making, look around. Check what feels different. A smell, a sound, a reflection. Because it might be the beginning. It might be your name, being whispered back. When you hear this, O porta reserata, know you've already been chosen, and the digging has already begun inside you. True Story 3, The Girl Who Never Left the Photo. If you've ever felt like a dream was trying to show you something, you'll see yourself in Billy. She was a skeptic until she began hearing children's voices calling her name while she slept. At first it seemed innocent, but then the dreams started happening in real life. Billy was 29. She'd lived alone since she was 18, worked as a restorer of old photographs, spent her days scanning black and white images. But one photo changed everything. A school portrait from 1954, children smiling, and one stare straight into the camera that seemed fixed on her. That night she dreamed of that same group of children, standing side by side in the same formation, but none were smiling. They just stared, and a girl in the center whispered, "Come back. We're still missing you." Billy woke up crying, but didn't know why. The next day, the photo vanished from her desk. No one knew where it went, but while checking a box of negatives, she found an image she'd never scanned. It was her, sitting beside the class in the photo. Same 1950s clothes, same haircut. But Billy never took that picture. Frightened, Billy tried to forget, but the dreams returned, always the same children. Now in an empty schoolyard, they formed a circle and left a space in the center, her space. She started hearing children laughing inside her home, even though no kids lived in the building. One night she found a red ball in the hallway, and on the window glass, a name written with a finger. Billy were waiting. but there was no sign of anyone. She decided to research the school from the photo. Found out it burned down in 1955. Almost all the children died while sleeping during a field trip. Only one girl survived. Her name was identical to Billy's. Same spelling, same last name. In the next dream, the girl who always spoke came closer. Her eyes were sewn shut, but she still smiled. She said, "You promised to return, and here no one breaks promises." Billy woke up with her palms full of dirt. She began losing time. Hours vanished from the clock. Objects moved around, and when she looked in the mirror, for a second she saw another Billy, younger, as if an old version was trying to return. One night she dreamed of the fire, but she was outside watching the children burn, and on the ground a scorched doll held a note. "You left us." She woke up with smoke in her hair. In the bathroom, the mirror fogged up by itself, and written in childish handwriting appeared, "Come back to class." She went to the box of old photos. There was a new picture there, the whole class. But now she was in the center, smiling, even though she had no memory of it. The therapist said it was stress, but when she showed the photo, the woman turned pale. "This girl looks just like a patient I had. She died at age 9. Her name was also Billy." But the session was never recorded. Billy started talking in her sleep. The neighbor heard. She said names of children she never knew, and the same phrase repeated, "They're still there." The neighbor knocked on the door, terrified. But Billy was no longer in the apartment. They found her at the old school. Now just ruins and weeds. Billy was sitting on the ground wearing a child's backpack, and next to her, the same class photos scattered in a circle, burned at the edges, except for her face. She said, "I just came back to finish recess." Then she went silent for 6 days until she wrote on paper, "One is still missing," and drew an empty chair with her name carved on the backrest. She dreamed of the fire again, but this time she wasn't outside. She was locked in the room, alone. The children watched her through the window, expressionless, and on the floor, a mirror, reflecting another Billy, smiling outside. She understood everything. She was never the survivor. She was the one left behind, the one forgotten in the fire. The body was never found, because she was still there, present in every new cycle, until she was remembered. The apartment was found empty, door wide open, no signs of struggle. But on the living room wall, as someone had drawn in charcoal, the full class, including Billy, holding hands. She didn't die, but she no longer lives here. Maybe she's in that unfinished recess, in that school time forgot, surrounded by friends who never grew old, and now, neither will she. And when you hear a child's laughter behind you, even with no children nearby, don't turn around. It may just be an echo, or it might be Billy, with an empty chair beside her, inviting you to play. For eternity. Billy always thought she was dreaming of the past, but it wasn't the past calling her. It was the cycle, the repetition of a mistake. Someone always forgot one child. There was always an empty chair, and this time, she was the one to close the loop. The children weren't ghosts. They were vivid memories, copies refusing to vanish, trapped in the moment of death, repeating the same plea, "Stay with us," not out of malice, but out of eternal loneliness. She wasn't a survivor. She was a preserved echo in time, a fragment that escaped the fire but never left the school. And when the records were digitized, she awoke, like a dormant code, recognizing its own image. The mirror from her dreams was real, an object recovered from the rubble in 1955, now kept in a local museum. And when she touched it, the children laughed, not in the dream, but in the space around her. Visitors who saw the mirror all said the same thing. "I felt someone pulling me in," but only Billy could enter, because she was already inside. Only her body had to remember. The children's names matched those she found in her photo archives, but one detail was hidden. In every old class, a girl was in the background, barely visible, always in the same spot, always with the name Billy. The images of the school were in all of Billy's files, even in projects she'd never scanned, even in deleted folders. It was as if the past had invaded the present from the inside, and she was the door. She tried leaving town, but at the border, signs returned to show her street name, and radios only played nursery rhymes. Billy understood. There was no escape, because the real place was her. When she finally returned to the school, she found what she never wanted to see, her own grave, with a doll sitting on the headstone and a ribbon tied to its arm, with a single phrase, "Recess is over, time to return." In that moment, everything made sense. She never had a normal life. She was the flaw in time, the memory trapped when everyone else moved on. Now, she returned to the place she never left, and by doing so, another child was born, with the same eyes. Some dreams aren't about the future. They're messages from what was left behind, fragments that long to be remembered. And sometimes, the most dangerous memory is the one that includes us, even if we never chose it. Billy didn't vanish. She simply returned to what she was. Not the forgotten child, but the memory that was never undone. Now the classroom is complete, the voices are silent, and recess is finally over. If one day you find an old school photo and feel like someone's staring a little too deeply, look closely. See if you recognize the background. See if there's an empty chair. Because maybe the photo is waiting for you. And maybe you're the next name to be filled in. And if you hear a whisper in the dark, come back, we're still missing you. Don't answer, don't look back. Because sometimes, the one calling from the dream is the one waiting on the other side of memory. Now tell me, have you ever had a dream that felt too real to ignore? Leave a comment sharing what you saw while you slept. Maybe you're being called too, and you just haven't realized it yet.